During a routine cargo audit, a really simple question often reveals a fundamental misunderstanding right at the core of tanker operations. You look at a checklist asking if the electrical insulation of the transfer interface is effective, and too often the answer comes back, "Yep, bonding's checked." But this basic error is confusing two completely different safety barriers that are designed to handle entirely different physical hazards.
When an officer says the bonding cable is connected, has the correct electrical arrangement actually been verified? To understand the physical hazards from first principles, we are going to analyze this issue in a strict sequence today. We'll cover terminology, internal continuity, external isolation, unintended paths, tanker casualties, and finally, ICCP management.
Section 1. Bonding, Continuity, and Isolation. Out on the deck, you'll hear terms like bonding, grounding, and insulation tossed around like they all mean the exact same thing. But they really don't. Bonding connects conductive parts together so they stay at the exact same electrical potential. Grounding, on the other hand, drains accumulated charge away to a safe reference point. And insulation separates conductive parts entirely to stop current from passing across an interface. When officers treat these terms interchangeably on the ICCP and ship-to-ship transfer checklists, they are fundamentally inverting the safety logic of a transfer operation.
Section 2. Static generation and internal continuity.
Let's start by looking at the internal hazards of a single ship. Just moving low-conductivity cargo around generates static charge. This hazard really spikes during high flow rates, filtration, splashing, or when cargo free-falls into a tank. Because this kind of cargo dissipates charge so slowly, the electrical energy stays locked right there within the liquid. On top of that, routine operations like tank washing or steam leakage can whip up a highly electrically charged mist.
Inside the ship's internal cargo system, electrical continuity is absolutely vital. Everything from your cargo pipelines and reducers to conductive components like sampling or ullaging equipment has to maintain continuity, or bonding, across those gasketed flanges. This ensures all the equipment stays at the exact same electrical potential as the ship itself. That prevents any isolated section from building up a charge and releasing a lethal spark.
Section 3. Relaxation and external isolation.
So here's where we get to the critical difference between managing internal static charge and managing external electrical potential. Internally, bonding doesn't magically or instantly remove the charge that's hanging out in the cargo or the mist. That is exactly why relaxation periods and strict operating precautions are still completely necessary to give that charge time to dissipate safely. But externally, the requirement is entirely different. The transfer interface between two ships, or between a ship and a terminal, absolutely must be electrically isolated. We achieve this by using an insulating flange or an electrically discontinuous hose.
Section 4. Unintended electrical paths.
Just verifying the manifold arrangement isn't going to be enough if the physical bridge between the structures gets accidentally bypassed. Electric current is always hunting for a path. During a ship-to-ship or ship-shore transfer, you have two massive steel structures that are almost certainly sitting at different electrical potentials. If any kind of conductive path joins them together, current is going to flow. And if that path gets broken or shifted while in a hazardous vapor area, you risk dangerous arcing.
A perfectly good insulating flange can be easily defeated by unintended electrical paths right across the deck. We're talking about things like metallic hose supports, ladders, gangways, crane wires, hooks, and even fender tages. Any of these can accidentally create a physical bridge between the vessels. If they bypass that isolation barrier, your primary control against arcing is completely lost.
Section 5. Lessons from tanker casualties.
Historical tanker disasters clearly demonstrate the fatal consequences of confusing these electrical controls. Take the 1985 explosion of a chemical tanker loading benzene in Okayama. They fitted a Teflon ring to reduce noise, but that ring electrically isolated a metal float from the rest of the ship's structure. Static charge built up on that isolated conductor and eventually discharged to the guide pipe. That spark ignited the benzene vapor.
In 1988, the motor tanker FIONA exploded while a surveyor was trying to measure cargo temperature. Leaking steam had generated a static charge inside the tank. That charge gathered on an ungrounded temperature probe and discharged right as the probe was being pulled out. It ignited the tank and tragically killed the surveyor.
A more recent example is the MT Pablo, which exploded off the coast of Malaysia in 2023, completely ripping open its cargo deck.
While it is widely discussed in tanker circles that static or electrical discharge might have ignited residual hydrocarbon vapor, the precise ignition source was never publicly established. It remains an unresolved casualty, which underscores just how much can remain unknown after such a catastrophic failure.
Section 6. Managing Cathodic Protection, or ICCP.
ICCP protects the hull from corrosion by applying a controlled electrical current to the underwater structure. But during ship-to-ship transfers, this creates complexities because those two steel hulls are sitting at different electrical potentials. A really common mistake is treating ICCP like it's a simple switch that automatically needs to be flipped off before a cargo transfer. It's not.
The 2025 Ship-to-Ship Transfer Guide clarifies this issue. Positive physical isolation using an insulating flange or a discontinuous hose remains your primary control. If both ships have healthy ICCP systems and the interface is positively isolated, ICCP is generally best left running to reduce the potential difference between the hulls, unless a specific risk assessment, local rule, or maker guidance explicitly dictates otherwise.
Section 7. Verifying complete electrical arrangements.
To actually ensure safety out there, a physical deck check must verify the reality of the arrangement. You can't just read a maker's certificate and assume you're covered. And if local regulations still insist you use a ship-shore bonding cable, you can never treat that as a substitute for true isolation. It has to be connected outside the hazardous area and managed strictly as a controlled connection through an approved switch.
Bond within each ship, isolate between ships, then physically verify the complete arrangement.
The question is not simply whether bonding is connected, the question is what has been bonded and where has the required electrical isolation been maintained.
Read the complete analysis at the DeepDraft.com.